Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reach Higher Riverside, where we share all Reach Higher stories happening across the nation. My name is Priscilla Grijalva, and I am your Reach Higher Riverside podcast host. Hey everyone, on this month's episode, we have an interview with some individuals that I'm part of a book club that was started a couple years ago during the global pandemic on anti-racism and equity and access. And I will go ahead and list some of these individuals who are amazing school counselors and advocates for the profession. Some of them are even counselor educators. I'll go ahead and list them in no particular order. Julie Hill is a school counselor in Indiana. She was also named the Indiana School Counselor of the Year. Ellen Hill is a school counselor in Indiana. Renee Schoening is a school counselor educator and the executive director of the Montana School Counselor Association. Monica Bryant is a school counselor in Las Vegas, Nevada. Emilia Peiffer is a school counselor in Pennsylvania. Dr. Wendy Rock is a counselor educator in Louisiana. Jen Nelson is a school counselor in Missouri. Dr. Shari Sevier is a director of school counselor advocacy for the Mississippi School Counselor Association. And these are just a few of the many roles that they play, and they do so much work for their communities and their schools. We were missing Mark Bogey. He's also part of our group. He wasn't able to be part of this interview, but everyone that's a part of this book club, they are amazing individuals, and they are very dear to my heart. So I'm so excited to share this interview with you guys, and I hope that you enjoy this interview. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm with the Equity and Access Anti-Racism book club that we've been doing for a while. So I will let them introduce themselves. We'll go ahead and start with Julie.
Hi, Priscilla. Thanks for having us. I am Julie Hill, and I am a school counselor in Indiana.
Hi, I'm Alan Hill, and I'm a school counselor in Indiana as well.
And I'm Monica Bryant. I'm a school counselor in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hi, my name is Emilia Peiffer. I'm a high school counselor in Pennsylvania.
I am Wendy Rock, and I am a counselor educator in Louisiana.
I'm Renee Schoening, and I am the executive director for Montana School Counselor Association and a counselor educator in Montana.
I'm Jen Nelson, and I'm a school counselor in Springfield, Missouri.
I'm Shari Sevier. I am director of advocacy for the Missouri School Counselor Association.
All right, awesome. We got an amazing group of people with us today. So let's talk about this book club. Julie, can you tell our listeners about it and how it got started?
Sure. So we were kind of just a group of friends who started getting together during COVID, kind of talking about professional things and trying to stay connected. But shortly after the George Floyd murders, several of us were just talking and were really troubled by things that are happening in our world, that are continuing to happen in our world, and wanting to take a more active role in fighting for social justice, fighting diversity, equity, access issues. And so as part of that journey, I knew that as a woman of white privilege, I clearly had a lot of work to do to educate myself historically and also in terms of what is appropriate action to be taking. And so through our conversations, we said, okay, what are we going to do? And we said, let's start a book club. And so it kind of grew from there. And we've had school counselors really from all over the country, many states, a variety of backgrounds who have joined us. We are now on finishing our 6th book.
Wow. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the books that you've already read.
Sure. Well, we started out, we wanted to really attack things. So we started with How to Be an Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram Kendi and really dug into that book. We followed that up with Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. And then we moved on to Coaching for Equity by Elena Aguilar. We read White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, and we are now finishing Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. So, and then of course we all read on the side as well. So things will jog a memory as we're going through, and we're constantly recommending books to one another. And we've also got our own little chat group. So we'll send articles and things like that to each other as well. So it's just been such an amazing opportunity. And I just appreciate the group here helping me hold myself accountable for taking action.
Yeah, it's so true. Holding us all accountable. Why is being part of this book club so important to you guys? And what has been your biggest takeaway from this group? Maybe if one or two want to share, whoever wants to jump in. All right, Emilia, go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of a latecomer to this group. I only started with the last book, but I'm really grateful to Julie for inviting me because someone just made the comment earlier tonight that, you know, the world has kind of gone crazy, and it is so nice to be able to have conversations like this that are sometimes very difficult and courageous with like-minded people, and to be able to get that support from this group in particular has been very important to me. And I am grateful to everyone who participates and has allowed me to jump in here. So that's been my biggest takeaway, is that it's just nice to be able to have some in-depth conversations on a topic that isn't easy for a lot of people. So
Yeah, it's so true. How about you, Monica?
No, I 100% agree with Emilia. This is my first book with the book club, hopefully not my last. And I was invited into, and it's definitely a safe space. Let me say that first. So I've never felt a time going through the current book that we're going through that I couldn't express something or say something, and in a way that, you know, no one on here is judging. So we're allowed to kind of have these conversations, because these are, even as a person of color, it's hard to have these conversations sometimes. And so it's a great safe space to be able to have these conversations and to learn and grow from people who in their own right are doing amazing things to advocate and to push our profession forward. So I'm just really grateful that I'm here and participating and surrounded by other amazing school counselors who are leaders, you know, in their organizations, in their schools, and for what they're doing nationally for us as well.
Yes, absolutely. Renee.
I feel like it's an oasis of sanity in a world gone mad, truthfully. I have appreciated this so much, and I'm learning so much, both from the books we are reading and then also from the people in the group. And if I've learned anything in the last, 50 years, it's that there is strength in vulnerability. And as others have already said, this is a safe space to express that vulnerability and to say and admit when I don't know something, and to, look to others for answers and have that be okay. And a really wonderful, supportive, and encouraging, empowering group to do that in.
What is racial equity and what does it mean to you? Yeah, Wendy.
That's something I grapple with a lot, but clearly in our society, people of color do not have the same opportunities as white people. And I think that trying to find ways to have it be more equitable, where the opportunities are there and people are able to access those opportunities equally, is really important. So I think racial equity is getting us to a place where everybody has equal access to opportunities. And you start to see all of the inequity, the disparity, when you look at the injustice, when you look at the statistics, you start to see those go away, right? Like healthcare, criminal justice, and in our field, education especially. I think that's what it is for a lot of what it is for me. And also embracing people's differences and celebrating them.
What does it mean to be anti-racist? Julie.
So I think, the biggest thing for me through this process is that being not racist is not the same thing as being anti-racist. So we can't allow ourselves to take a position of neutrality. We have to be advocates. We have to be allies. And it's stepping up and doing that work that creates the opportunity for someone to be anti-racist.
Yeah, Renee.
I think it's taking a stand and having kind of a no tolerance attitude toward what we see. And when we see something, say something, even that, but also a big piece of this being anti-racist is really understanding what racism is and educating myself about that, and how just by virtue of the fact that I have lived in this world and that I have privilege because of some of the way the world has been set up and things that have happened, and owning that, I think that's part of being anti-racist too.
Alan.
I think part of that for me is having the courage to have those courageous conversations with people that don't look like me, and do it with the idea to understand them better and to find out how the world perceives them from their lens, so that I have a better understanding of what that looks like for them, so that I can be ready and able to maybe give up my privileges if I need to help them out.
Wendy, did you have something you were going to say?
I was just going to add that, I think there's this fabulous, and I think your next question is about favorite anti-racist leaders. I've discovered one recently, Jason Reynolds. I don't know if y'all are familiar with him, but he's on a podcast with Brene Brown and tells this wonderful story about a teacher with a fish. And the rule was no one in the classroom was to touch the fish. And they all became very close to the fish, feeding it. And then he put the fish on the floor one day and it was flopping, and 2 girls picked it up. And the rule was if you touched it, you were getting suspended from school. 2 girls picked it up and put it back in the bowl. And he told them to get their stuff and leave. They were suspended. And the whole class was just stunned. Like, what do you mean they saved the fish? And he, as they were going down the hall crying, he called after them. There's consequences for the things we do, but sometimes doing the right thing comes with consequences. And for me, I think that's part of being an anti-racist. There are risks involved for standing up for things that are right. And there's going to be consequences, and it can be hard. And our risk tolerance is different for each person. We don't know what someone's going through, but I think making those hard decisions and sometimes standing up in those situations.
Yeah, it's such a powerful story. Jen?
I was going to add to that and say that I feel like a lot of it is not just educating myself, but stepping out of my comfort zone, and so there's a lot of situations I've had with students over the last year or so that, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of learning, but then bringing it into the room in situations where I normally wouldn't have. And I really shied away from that. And because that was what I was comfortable with, or I felt safer with, but taking the risk and bringing it into the room and asking some of those questions has deepened my relationship with those students and made them feel safer in the space with me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps you be a better advocate for students. I love that. And going back to the next question, kind of like Wendy was tying in, like, who are your favorite anti-racist leaders and why? Go ahead, Monica.
So in all honesty, I couldn't think of any like celebrities. I mean, a Colin Kaepernick could probably be on the list, right? But honestly, when I think about on a day-to-day basis, it's a lot of its colleagues. It's you all, sitting around, some of my favorite teacher friends, but just my favorite admin people who are just willing to do this work of anti-racism, right? Because we understand that we impact students, and we understand that the impact we have on students is going to potentially affect them long term. And we want to make sure that that's in a positive light, right? So I think that when I think about who's doing this work, especially with so much of the crazy that's out here with legislation, and you can't teach this and you can't teach this, that, it's educators on the forefront of trying to combat that and trying to make that happen. So I think about my colleagues, the people on this podcast, others that I've come in contact with that I see on a regular basis advocating for anti-racism in the spaces where they work.
Yeah, absolutely grateful for those educators who are standing up for what's right. To kind of go into the next question, why is it harmful to consider one racial group to be dangerous and other racial groups to be safe? How can that racist idea open us all up to personal harm? Yeah, Monica, go ahead.
I think the harm is it perpetuates the stereotypes, the microaggressions, all of those things that we see that are that nobody likes to speak up on, or nobody likes to say like, oh, this is status quo, this is how it is. But, you know, we box people when we do that. And so if we're saying that there's this stereotype and that applies to all Black people, well, it doesn't, right? Just like something is not going to apply to all white people or all of anybody. And so I think when we keep those negative things going, it is harmful to students who see that, our children who think that this is the max of what they can strive to be because of the color of their skin, because of their sex. You know what I mean? That there's limitations to them, and there shouldn't be. I think part of what Wendy was saying earlier about breaking down some of those barriers. And so I think that's why it's harmful, because when we start to think I'm better than you, or I'm better because of what I look like, or because of what you look like, is where it's really, I feel like, the core of how racism started, right? Somebody thinking they're better. And then we end up in these tragic situations like Holocaust and Japanese internment camps and all of these things happening because one group decided they were better, instead of teaching that empathy, that kindness, that just general respect for humanity, types of things instead.
Wendy.
I was just going to echo that. I think it just has the most dangerous repercussions on our society as a whole, when we perpetuate those ideas. And it is something that we're not going to get over it if we don't talk about it. So, you know, the legislation that doesn't allow you to speak about things like this allows those ideas to fester. And I think that it's dangerous for our society. It's leading down a really horrible road. Continue with that.
Yeah. Shari.
It perpetuates divisiveness or enhances divisiveness. And I think it brings us back to that saying that says, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And I see that could be the outcome of, again, having one group thinking they're better than the other. And so I you know, my feeling is we need to keep striving towards let's not forget. Let's not forget. Let's go forward. Let's talk. Which, you know, I look at our little group and think, you know, I feel like we're kind of little brave souls on a boat together, and you know, talking about all these things, and again, reiterating what everybody else has been saying, how safe it is. If we make a mistake, it's okay. But it's been a very, to be able to learn in this manner has been such a privilege. The people that you get to meet and the opinions that come forward, and they really stretch you and pull you out of your comfort zone, you know, and then just meeting all these people. It's just, you know, I'll tell you at the conference last summer, you came up to me, Priscilla, and gave me this big hug, and I'm thinking, who is this? And then it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm finally meeting Priscilla. You know, I see you week after week, and it's just so much fun. And now I can't wait to hug Monica, you know, this summer. You know, it's like, this is great. It's so fun meeting all these people and being able to sit and have real conversations with them. Real.
It's funny that you say that, Shari, because I was just thinking about you the other day, because I sat with one of your colleagues out there in Missouri when Michelle Obama was speaking in 2014 at the ASCA conference. And I just remember thinking like, wow, who's this lady up there hugging Michelle Obama? And it was you. And then like, here I am years later, I met you, and I just like, I'm still like in awe, but I really respect you. And so it's just been amazing to like meet all of you people. But going to the next question, this one's kind of like, got a lot of questions into it. So I'll kind of like try to summarize it. What are the negative effects of all forms of bigotry, such as negative effects of ascribing specific behaviors to specific gender groups, transgender people, specific classes, specific orientations, those who are disabled? What are the negative effects of that?
Well, I know one that I wanted to bring up for the last question you asked, but one thing that I was thinking about was if if you already have a certain stereotype in your mind about another group that is different than you are, the chances of you actually taking time to listen to a person from that group and learning about them personally and about their culture in general, the chances of that happening are very, very slim. And I definitely see that as a negative impact. I see that happening already in our society where people are just not taking the time to get to know each other anymore because they already assume that they know who they are because of whatever disability they have or whatever the color of their skin is. And I just think that if we continue in that way, I think Shari said we're going to become more and more divisive. And we're all school counselors here and we listen for a living. So for us, it's very natural to want to go and listen to other people's stories. I enjoy listening to everybody's stories and learning about them. And it is a way that we grow by encountering other cultures. But yeah, the fear is there. If this bigotry continues, then yeah, we're not going to take the time to listen to each other anymore and get to know each other anymore.
I think, Monica, did you have something to say next? Or?
I'll be quick. Yeah, I think we just make opportunities to grow and learn from people. You know, like you come across somebody, and we talked earlier about good vibes, right? Like you meet people and you get these good vibes and this good energy, and you just miss that when the bigotry comes in because you're going to pause and you're not even going to give yourself the opportunity to connect with that person on any level, right? And so we miss what they can offer us that better us. They miss out on what we can offer them to better them because everybody's got, their things that make them shine, and we lose those opportunities.
Renee?
Well, I just back to something that Shari said earlier, that we have to look at what has happened in the past and historically. And if we consider that, I mean, the potential consequences of this, becoming worse are huge. One of the questions you had earlier, our favorite anti-racist leaders, and mine is Nelson Mandela. I mean, I just think, what an amazing human. And when you think about racism, I think it's important that we think about it globally, not just what's happening in our country, because there's so much to learn about what's happened in other countries, both good and bad. But, his approach was reconciliation. And I think that's that healing piece. And again, someone said, yes, we're all, Emilia, we're counselors. We listen for a living, and we also are healers. And we want to see things mended, healed, improved. And so I think that's why this work feels so important to me. Is status quo and doing nothing doesn't feel like an option, because we're not moving toward healing and reconciliation if we do that.
Mm-hmm. Why is facing facts and accepting knowledge essential to being anti-racist?
To me, facts are truth. And I think a lot of the reason we are where we are and our history's been the way it's been is we haven't been dealing with facts. We've been dealing with fears, and we've been dealing with presumptions and assumptions and learned behaviors that aren't based in reality. And so I think being able to have honest conversations, talk freely about reality with one another is such an empowering opportunity to grow and learn. It just opens all kinds of doors.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about the picture that probably everyone has seen of the little girl standing in front of the portrait of Michelle Obama. And she just stood there mesmerized. And I thought, if that isn't the picture of hope and of, this opens up all possibilities. And I wish that for everybody. Everybody should have that opportunity to feel like, hey, the door is wide open, and I can do and I can be whatever I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. Wendy.
I was just going to add that, when we're not facing facts and the facts are misleading, then that can lead to wrong ideas about things, which can lead to racism. So just one of my earliest memories in this book club was Alan, after reading, and I think it was probably not, we were reading How to Be an Anti-Racist, but I know Alan and Julie had listened to Stamped from the Beginning. And I remember Alan saying, I was a history teacher and I didn't know history. I wasn't teaching history right. And I think that's where facts are just so incredibly important, that we get it right so that we have a good understanding of why things are like they are today.
Yeah.
Well, and Wendy, I think along those same lines, what this group has allowed us to do is to look at where we have come from and what we have taken as fact. And now we're discovering, oh, no, that's not the way it really is. And again, the group provides a safe place to do that. I remember stories that Alan has told about, talking to people in his school. And I've so admired that he's done that, just gone and just opened the conversation. And I just think that this group has given us new insights and in many ways, new courage to be authentic.
Great motivator.
Yeah.
Emilia, I think you were next.
Yeah, what I thought of was, just how the question said being open to knowledge. And what I'm worried about that's happening right now are all these attempts to limit curriculum and limit what is being taught to our students, including SEL. A lot of that is under attack as well. And I think that is very detrimental. I mean, because we're talking about you have to be open to accepting knowledge, but if we're not even allowed to give that knowledge, how are we going to, become a more anti-racist society as a whole? So that's what I thought about.
Julie or Alan?
Yeah, I just, this question helped me just think of one of the quotes that I've always loved. And I think it was Brene Brown that basically said, truly learning means taking your experience through your eyes and not how I envision it to be. And I think that's such an important part of the work that we're doing is we can't make assumptions about somebody else's experience. We have to take the time to learn those facts and hear what that experience was for that individual person or that group.
We got a few more questions. As school counselors, we are leaders in the community and we advocate for all students. How can we identify barriers to learning and access to opportunities, particularly for students of color? Go ahead, Julie.
Well, I think that the first step is really just digging into the data and understanding what trends we are seeing amongst our students of color, amongst our all of our marginalized student populations, and then digging into that data, looking for some of the root causes, and then being very thoughtful about how we can implement systemic change to address some of those barriers.
Monica.
And I will just add quickly to that because I think Julie is spot on, but I think it's, we have to be, here we're talking about safe spaces, right? But we have to create that safe space at our schools or wherever we're working because, looking at that data sometimes comes with having to have a tough conversation with some of your colleagues. Hey, I've noticed that everybody who comes through your class, these things are happening. I've noticed you know what I mean? And so it sometimes comes with having those tough conversations. And so building up that trust and that rapport with people, I think is key for that too. And providing those safe spaces for us to have those conversations with our staff.
Yeah, data is so important. Describe your anti-racist superpower. Wendy.
So this was a hard one for me, but I've given it a lot of thought. I think my anti-racist superpower is twofold. One is to recognize if somebody questions me or even challenges me on something that I've said or my thinking, rather than to become defensive, which is what I used to do immediately, is now to listen to that defensiveness, like to pay attention to what my body is telling me and to accept that feedback, like reflect on it. What does it mean? Why am I getting defensive? What is that telling me? It's telling me something. And the second part of that is just the continuation of learning. It never stops. That this is not, there's no end point. This is a journey, and I'm going to continue to learn and grow as I go along in the journey.
Yeah, and you're really good with having difficult conversations with people and just loving on people who they are. So I really love that about you.
Thank you.
Renee.
Mine is a little more simple. Empathy. It just, for me, boils down to empathy. Trying to lead and live in empathy and grace.
Julie, or Alan, sorry.
I fell in love with Maya Angelou's quote, and I consider that what my superpower is, because that's what I want to follow. It says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
That's a good quote. To be anti-racist is to be hopeful. How do you think you can find hope? Jen.
I see it every day in my students. You know, I just feel like there's so much hope in the next generation, and the insight and the wisdom and the acceptance and the love that comes from just naturally from students towards each other. And I think that so much of the divisiveness that we see is taught. And but when you get down to the heart of it, like they care about each other and they want to be seen, and they know that each other wants to be seen and cared for in the way that they exist. And I just find so much hope in what's to come.
Yeah, that's so true. Renee. Oh, no, not Renee. Okay. And did someone else? Did I miss someone? Monica.
I find hope in the little things, like anytime that, you know, something major happens on the news, I look for the small pieces of anti-racism that I see happening. So it's how kids are meshed up and, you know, playing with each other on the playground, or it's a colleague who's figuring out how to incorporate something anti-racist into a lesson, or colleagues getting together to do a book club to help and better themselves. And so I try to look at it from little pieces of things that I can pull, because sometimes nationally we don't see it as much. So I try to look for what I can see in everyday life.
Mm-hmm. That's so hopeful. Julie.
Yeah, definitely what Jen and Monica had already said. But, you know, I think the other places that I see hope are in those moments when I am able to have one of those courageous conversations, whether it's with a colleague, whether it's with a legislator, and there's at least a moment that gives them pause to really like reflect on the things that I have shared. And, you know, the idea that maybe for a moment I'm causing them to rethink something that they have a long held belief. And so in those moments, I think it's kind of that starfish effect. You know, this is a huge thing, and it's not going to be resolved in one moment. But if we continue taking steps forward, that's really what we can do.
Yeah, taking advantage of those opportunities that you have. At the end of our podcast, we like to do the Sunshine Spotlight. Can you tell me at least one thing that's made you happy this week? Go ahead, Monica.
Book club. I always look, I'm like, you guys are laughing, but it's a bright spot. Like, I like to see all of everybody's smiling faces. I just get to have a couple of hours where I'm just like relaxed. It's not hardcore. I don't have to do too much outside thinking. I gain something from it. And so I always look forward. I'm like, oh, yay, every other Thursday, book club.
Yeah, that's true. I think we were laughing because we agree with you. Like, we were just so happy that you said that. Renee?
Well, totally. I was just thinking, this is making me happy. And not only book club, but also this opportunity to talk with you, Priscilla, about what this is meant to be a part of this group. I think, it's really cool to sort of have that. We're sort of summarizing what's happened so far and giving words and feeling to how much this is meant to each of us. Like, we've spent time talking about the books, but not necessarily how great this has been. for us personally. So just even this process, I'm just having such a feel good right now. Thank you for having us on today.
Yeah, no problem. Alan?
I just got word today that one of my dear friends and stuff has just received the news that they're cancer free after a period of time of battling it and stuff. Best news.
Yay.
And came at the right time. I was kind of getting down at school, things were going and stuff, and I got the text, and I just brightened my day and made the rest of the day go much better dealing with the kids and stuff. So
that's awesome. Julie?
Yeah, and I think we all laughed when Monica said book club because it was like, she took my answer. But I'm just kind of reflecting on, just the comments that we've had even tonight about how this group has grown and evolved. We started out as just kind of a small little group of people that said, hey, I want to do something. I want to make a difference. And, we've got to have a few people on here tonight. They're like, this is my first book with the group, because the word has spread. People are saying this is meaningful to me. Come join us on this journey. And I think that just, I guess I kind of go back to that gives me hope, gives me heart.
Wendy?
So I could echo everything that everyone has said about book club, because it is just a bright spot in my day. I look forward to it every week that we have it. But since everybody has said that, I'll add, my 20-year-old daughter is, she's only an hour away at LSU, and she was just home from Mardi Gras like 2 weeks ago, but they have spring break now. And so she's coming home tomorrow. And so we were texting a little bit, and she said she's going to be in tomorrow night at 7:00. So I said, okay, sounds good. Can't wait to see you. And her text back said, I'm excited to come home for a little. So the fact that my 20-year-old, who, when she was younger, we would go toe to toe and argue on everything. She is excited to come home for a little.
Aww.
That just made my day.
That's cute. Jen?
On the flip side of that, my 4-year-old is here snuggling me next to me, and he's ornery as can be normally, but grabbed me yesterday and said, Mommy, I love you. So, just a little thing.
Yeah.
I started a book club tonight by saying that we completed a virtual conference today in Pennsylvania. I'm the executive director of the Pennsylvania School Counselors Association. Everyone is always so positive, like, this was the best ever. And I have to question, like, was it really the best ever? I think what that feeling is coming from, honestly, is being able to just connect with one another, sort of like what we're doing here tonight. So I think that's, and it's great to see that, because it's like, yeah, people just want to connect. So whatever the circumstances, if you're with like-minded people and you're free to feel comfortable saying what you want to say, I just think that it just brings a lot of joy to people. So I had that earlier today, and now I have this tonight, and now I have my puppy on my lap.
Yeah, totally. It energizes you.
Yes.
Shari, did you have something?
Yeah, I would say that the happy place for me is being with friends. And I look across all the photos of everybody, and I've got friends who have been around for a while. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, totally. I mean, you have good friends in your life.
So friends like Julie, who, has been with me for a long time. And then Alan came along. So he took a little bit of Julie away, but really didn't, because he just adds to everything. And, my friendship with Jen, but I've gotten to know everybody. And so it's wonderful to be able to pick up a phone and text Wendy and ask her a question, and she'll write right back, and we'll wish one another a happy birthday and things like that. Those friendships are so precious. So yeah.
Oh man, you're making me cry. That's okay. It's a good cry. For me, I'm incredibly grateful for all of you. I do truly care about all of you, and I look forward to this every week. And I'm just grateful for my job. Like, I love what I do every day. So this like obviously energizes me to continue to do better and advocate for kids. So thank you guys so much for being on this podcast. I can't wait to share it with the world. If you could just say goodbye to everyone out there listening.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much, Priscilla.
Bye, Priscilla. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Reach Higher Riverside. You can follow us on Twitter at RH Riverside. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Reach Higher Riverside. You can also subscribe to our iTunes or Google Play Music and give us a rating. Thank you so much for listening in. We appreciate all of you tuning in. And as Michelle Obama would say, when they go low, we reach higher.